Turn off your lights. Make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. Creepiest Experience I Had at Work by Khepri. I like to preface this by telling you guys that this is not a fictional story. This happened to me on April the 19th, and there's a trigger warning about a man being inappropriate with minors. I work in an arcade or fun center with a ball pit and bouncing house. Most of our customers are nice people, but there will always be an aberrant few among the crowd, one in which I encountered on my most recent shift. This isn't the first time I had seen the man, though. We had first met a few weeks prior. He brought his 11-year-old son and his 2 friends to the arcade. I was stationed at the bouncy house that day. I thought it was odd that I hadn't seen him before because he had a membership, and I had been working here for almost a year. The 3 young boys ran into the bouncy house, and the man sat on a bench right next to me where I was standing, even though all the others were empty. He didn't look shady or anything. He wore black sweatpants and a gray t-shirt that matched his sneakers. He had short, curly hair and light brown skin that was dusted with freckles. His deep brown eyes seemed to sparkle as he looked up at me and smiled. I grinned and asked how he was doing, and we fell into a pleasant conversation easily. He asked me what my name was, and he introduced himself as David, fake name. He was kind and charming, and at first I appreciated his company. As we talked about our day, he began to slip details of his life into his sentences. How he loved his son and thought it was amazing that I was good with kids. I said the boys were well-mannered and were a pleasure to have, which is a statement I stand by. He paused for a few seconds and sighed as he said, "Yeah, but it's hard out here being a single dad." I sympathized with him because my mother was single for a long time after a divorce from my father. She works herself to the bone every day, and I'll never forget everything she does to give us a great life. That's why I didn't find this comment too strange. However, soon after he became more direct, continuing to emphasize that he was single. He asked if I was in college. I was a bit more firm as I disclosed the fact that I am in high school. He smiled and asked me, "How old do you think I am?" I kept it cool, thinking maybe he was just playing around. I looked at his face for a moment and guessed he was 28 based on the subtle creases in his face and a few strands of gray hair. He wore a boyish grin and laughed as he said, "Nah, I'm 32. I was surprised. I told him I thought he was younger than that. I was trying to be nice. Another chuckle escaped his lips as he hummed and nodded. He turned away to look at the kids again. After a few seconds, he turned back to face me and asked the question I had been dreading. "How old are you?" His eyes were laced with something I couldn't define, an insidious twinkle that made my heart drop. I had the feeling this was coming, though I didn't want to believe it. I had hoped he was trying to be friendly, but a deep pit had formed in my stomach. Something wasn't right. The flirting was obvious now, and I wasn't sure what to do. "I'm 17, I said curtly. He raised his eyebrow and smirked again. With an eager expression, he asked me what my birthday was. I tried my best to be obtuse, but I tend to worry about coming across as rude. My birthday's in May," I stammered. I cursed at myself for revealing the fact that I would soon be legal age, and I was terrified that he saw that as a sign to continue flirting. As he was about to ask me something else, another parent came to me and asked me a question. Astonishing relief swept through my body as I eagerly stepped away from Donald and spoke with the other parent. More people began to trickle into the area, and I made sure to talk to as many other parents as I could to look busy. Around 15 minutes later, most of the parents and kids trickled out again, leaving me isolated with Donald. He scooted from the middle of the bench to be closer to me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw his eyes trail up and down my body, his gaze falling onto my hand. He seemed to notice my claddagh ring that I was wearing. "You married? You have a boyfriend?" His voice was laced with urgency. I thought I was going to burst into tears then and there. I was so taken aback by his question that I couldn't even come up with a lie. "No, I'm just working on myself. I'm enjoying being single." I did my best to sound confident, but my voice still shook with apprehension, threatening to break. "Good for you. How old are you again?" He cocked his head like a curious dog. "I'm 17, I said even more firmly. I want this man to leave me alone, but I didn't want him to lie about me being rude to him. Kids still remained in the bouncy house, so I couldn't leave the area. That's cool. I really respect that, you know. If you ever need to chill and hang out, you can give me your number. You can come to my place." He smiled widely, but his Stygian eyes cut through me like a blade. I nodded vaguely as I stormed away to look at something in the bouncy house. Tears threatened to spill down my face as I tried to steady my breathing. The last threads of my composure were beginning to snap. I took deep breaths, and as if heaven sent, the kids with Donald ran out of the bouncy house and asked him to go to the ball pit. The boys grabbed their shoes hurriedly and scurried out the gate as if they were late to an appointment. I faced the exit to watch them leave. As Donald trailed slowly behind the boys, he turned back to face me and said, "See you soon." I turned my back to him as a silent tear slipped down my face. He left shortly afterwards. Now that you have context, I'll tell you what happened on the 19th. I was working at the ball pit that day, and everything had been going smoothly so far, even though I was sick with a fever of 102. I decided to wear a mask to keep others safe, and because the ball pit is the equivalent of a petri dish. I had been kicking stray foam balls away from the gate when the door sensor chimed. I walked over to look at the front, and I saw Donald's children and his two friends run inside. Donald walked in a second later, and I thought I was going to faint. Unfortunately for me, him and his children came over to the ball pit first. I let them in wordlessly, not even looking at Donald's face. The kids ran inside, and interesting enough, he didn't say anything to me. He didn't even look at me. I don't think he recognized me with the mask, at least not at first. As the kids played, he sat on one of the benches, playing with his phone. The ball pit was busy at the time, so I felt safer knowing that I was surrounded by other parents. The universe seemed to be vouching for me that day because I got my break about 5 minutes later. I took my break outside. My mother and father called me, insisting I tell my manager that he is back. I assured them that I would spend the rest of the time finishing up an episode of a podcast. After I clocked back in, Donald left the ball pit and I was alone. I decided to spend some time cleaning up the place since I had nothing more to do. I made sure to keep looking behind me though, just in case. I spent some time picking up balls on my hands and knees, and I got up to sweep some more out of the way of the gate. As I walked towards the outside of the gate, I saw Donald walking around with his phone up, very obviously filming. He was alone, and he was walking quickly, with purpose. He filmed the front of the ball pit, and his camera started sweeping towards my direction. I turned away quickly, not wanting to be filmed. I leaned quietly against a section of the fence, waiting for him to leave. I stayed there for about 30 seconds. When I turned back around, he was still there, less than 2 feet behind me now. He jerked his phone away from my direction and stormed off towards the other section. I hoped he was showing the ball pit to someone over FaceTime, trying to block thoughts of his possible malice out of my mind. But a question still remained. How long had he been filming? My manager was nowhere in sight, so I decided it was best to stay there and monitor everyone else that came in or out of the area. Quickly, a family of regulars shuffled into the ball pit, a mother and 4 children between the ages of 2 and 8. We didn't have many customers at the time, so I could help them collect the balls and play with them, which eased my anxiety. We played for around 15 minutes, and I got up again to watch the gate. That's when Donald came back, once again, without his children. His phone was pointed at the ball pit again. He was leaning on the gate right behind me, and his phone was pointed directly at the group of young children. I finally had enough, and I walked up to him, speaking in a sharp, concerned tone. "Sir, please do not film children you don't know." He looked at me blankly and replied, "I'm not. I'm showing my wife, see?" He flashed the phone at me, which showed a woman on the screen. He pulled his phone back towards his chest quickly, but not quick enough to deprive me of the details. The woman's face was completely still, and the camera in the bottom right corner did not show my reflection, even though his phone was pointed right at me. He wasn't on FaceTime with anyone. It was a fucking screenshot. He held his phone tight and practically jogged away, gathering his children and leaving shortly after. My mind raced through a million questions. I thought he was a single father. Did he lie about being single, or did he lie about being married just now? Was he taking pictures or video of me before? What about the children? These questions stewed in my head as our store neared closing hours. As soon as I saw my manager, I spilled my guts about what happened, throwing in every detail I had about the weird stuff Donald was doing. My manager was horrified and wanted to ban him right there and then. He texted the head manager immediately, but I told him to wait on banning him. The manager was puzzled and asked why I would want to do that. I was honest with him. I told him that I was worried. If Donald gets banned from our establishment the day after I called him out, he's probably going to realize it had something to do with me. I'm scared that he'll be angry. I don't want him to come after me. He doesn't know much about me, but plenty of people are savvy enough to find out. He nodded silently and said that everything was going to be taken care of. I thanked him and left for the evening. I don't know what's going to happen or how this will be resolved, but I don't think this man should be trusted around children. I never want to see him again, but if I do, I pray to God that we are not alone.
Since I was the only Boy Scout of the group, my friends put me in charge while we waited for rescue. I obeyed all the Scout rules about how to build us a shelter and find water, but since there was no grown-up supervision, we decided to skip boiling the water.
Owl Hollow by Potential Ad 697. I honestly don't even know why I'm saying this. It's not like anyone's going to believe me anyway. Maybe it's just to get out of my head. Maybe it's some kind of warning. I don't know. Last October, I went hiking alone near Mount Hood. I was trying to get away from everything. Work, noise, people. I found this spot on an old Forest Service map called Owl Hollow near Jordan Creek. Sounded perfect, secluded, quiet, barely even mentioned online. The first 2 hours were fine, peaceful even, just the sound of the creek and my boots crunching gravel. It felt good. like I could breathe again. But sometime in the afternoon, that feeling started creeping in. You know the one. Like somebody's watching you. At first, I tried to shake it off, told myself I was being stupid. Big woods alone, of course you're going to feel jumpy. But it kept getting worse. Around 3 p.m., I looked off to the trail into the trees, and there were a pair of eyes staring at me through the bush. Not blinking, just watching. It wasn't a deer. I know what deer look like. It was different, lower to the ground. Wrong shape, no sound at all. I kept hiking, probably faster than I should have. About an hour later, I came around a bend, and there they were, a man and a woman standing in the middle of the trail. I don't know how to explain it. Everything about them just felt off immediately. Their clothes were weird, like they walked out of an old photograph. Faded colors, stiff fabric, almost dusty. I tried to say hello, maybe ask if they needed help, but my voice just kinda died. They didn't say anything either, just stared. And when they passed me, they both turned their heads at the same time and smiled. I can't even describe it right. It wasn't human. Their mouths stretched way too wide, and their teeth were wrong, sharp and dirty, and their eyes fucking turned black. Not like dark irises black, like bottomless pits. I almost threw up. I almost ran. But they just kept walking like nothing had happened, disappearing into the woods behind me. I should have left right then. I should have turned around, sprinted back to my truck, never looking back. But I didn't. I kept going. Dumbass. By the time I set up camp that night, my hands were shaking so bad I could barely get the tent up. It didn't matter. I wasn't sleeping anyway. As the sun went down, the woods around me got wrong. Too quiet. No birds, no bugs. Nothing but the creek and the sound of my own heart pounding in my ears. Then I started seeing them. First one, then two, then more. 17 or 18 of them, crouching in the trees, peeking from behind rocks, half buried in the tall grass, all with the same twisted smiles, all with those black eyes. I sat there by the fire, clutching my pistol, feeling like I was going to pass out from terror. They didn't move. They didn't get closer, they just watched. I don't know what snapped, but I stood up and fired 2 shots straight into the air. The sound echoed through the trees, sharp and painful. They didn't even flinch. That's when I ran. I grabbed my pack and ran like my life depended on it because, honestly, I think it did. I don't remember getting back to my car. I don't even remember driving home. I just remember slamming the door behind me and sitting there in the dark for hours, shaking, gun still in my hand. I haven't told anyone until now. People would think I'm crazy. Hell, I think I'm crazy sometimes when I replay it in my head. But I know what I saw, and I'm telling you, if you ever find yourself near Owl Hollow, turn around, get out while you can. some places are better off forgotten. Trying to get this story out so someone can help me make sense of it, or maybe refer me to a psychologist. I held the knife in my throat, watching my assailant run off with my wallet and cell phone. "Whatever you do, don't remove the blade," I told myself as I collapsed on the steps of urgent care, which was closed for another 29 minutes. Stalker by CAssist3873. I'm a long-time lurker, so thought I'd finally share this post with everyone. At the time, my family and I lived in Liverpool in the northwest of England in the early 2000s. Where we're from has always been notorious for its substance problem, and being one of the most deprived areas in the country. I'm the youngest of 4, who are all a few years older than me. And by the time I was in high school, were already starting their own families. It was just me and my mom at home. She worked as a nurse and was sometimes assigned to night shifts. So I was often left alone, apart from the neighbors checking in once in a while, which I didn't mind. When Mom worked, I completed simple household tasks like cleaning and putting the wash on the line outside. We didn't have a back garden, we had a garden on the front of the house. In the summer, I leave the front door open so I could get in and out easier to let some fresh air into the house, which wasn't uncommon on the estate as most had kids which would be running in and out of each other's houses all day. I started noticing that some of my clothes would go missing off the line, particularly underwear, but I just shrugged it off as the wind blowing it off or some kid's idea of a joke. But it started happening every time there was a washout, even where no kids were outside playing. We didn't own a dryer, so there was no other option but to put the clothes outside to dry, so more and more items kept going missing. Then more disturbing things started happening, such as me going upstairs and returning to the front door being wide open when I left it closed, or the entire washing line being pulled down, with only certain items being taken from the pile. I'd also often find hand smudges on the window that I convinced myself were from me opening and closing them. I thought I was just being paranoid, but was still scared and didn't want to be alone, especially of a night as my imagination got the better of me. So I explained to my brother about the strange things I had noticed and if he could pick me up and take me to his house for the night. The next morning, my brother got a call from my mom asking if I was with him and to return home to clean up the mess I had left. My brother came with me so he could explain to my mom that I was extremely paranoid and anxious, as he knew she was stressed from the long shift and would not be lenient on me for leaving a mess. Once we got home, I noticed there were dirty footprints throughout the house, which were definitely too big to be mine or my mom's, that were not there when I left. My mom was pacing around the living room in a huff, pointing and shouting about pillows being thrown around and glass/plates being left laying around unwashed. I had my brother's word to back me up that it had definitely not been left this way when he had picked me up. She was confused as to who else would have made the mess since I was the last person in the home. She asked me to clean it up as she was going to bed and to make sure that everything was tidy for when she woke up. When she reached the top of the stairs, she started calling my brother's name. Every door upstairs was open, and every room had been rifled through. Both my and my mom's underwear drawers had been flung open, with clothes covering the floor. Both beds had been untidy as if someone had slept in them, with cigarette butts flicked onto the floor. It was obvious that someone else had been in the house, and it seemed they made themselves feel at home. My brother sent me and Mom downstairs to phone the police as he checked the rest of the house. He noticed the bathroom light on and noticed that whoever had been here had run themselves a bath, which they had forgotten to drain, and had left a ring around the tub and made a cup of tea. Resting on the toilet were multiple pairs of me and my mom's underwear, which had been soiled by them, which at this point my brother had to leave the bathroom and wait for the police. When the police finally came, they told us it was most likely a homeless person or someone on drugs who wanted a bed to sleep in for the night, since nothing was actually taken, including a ring on Mom's dresser, which was clearly in sight, and there was nothing much they could do other than suggest we make sure that all the windows and doors are locked. After that, I wasn't allowed to stay home alone of a night anymore, just in case something similar were to happen again. But nothing ever did, apart from underwear occasionally going missing off the line. I'm not sure if this was a stalker situation or the police were right. It was just a coincidence, but it still freaks me out. Will you gamble and spin one more time to win our jackpot prize of 10 million tonight? Asked the game show host. She thought hard for a few minutes before nodding and nervously loading the third bullet into the revolver. Skinwalker Encounters in Our Town in Germany by Who TF is J. I live in a small village surrounded by forest in Bavaria, Germany, and me and my friends who lived there with me had many encounters with skinwalkers or something else in and around the forest. The first encounter happened about 3 years ago with me and my friend who were a bit drunk because we were doing a campfire in the garden with some other friends at night, and we wanted to walk a bit with the dog. We wanted to walk a path that enters a forest when our dog suddenly got very anxious, and that's when we felt like an aura of something that absolutely didn't want us there. We looked up at the path to see if there was something, and then we saw a tall, pale figure standing behind a tree staring at us. The first one who ran was our dog. The last big encounter was 5 months ago when I had to walk home at 11:30 at night from a neighboring village about 2 kilometers away because my bus didn't drive directly to my village. Most of the time it's pretty chill walk with nothing going on, just normal feeling of anxiety because it's dark. But this one time was different. The path my village follows is a Landstraße along the forest that doesn't go all the way, just about 3/4 of it. When I entered the bit with the forest alongside the way, I already felt something not wanting me to be there at all. Hearing that, I screamed "Vespers dish," piss off in English, into the forest, hoping that it just was a wild animal, that it would go away, but it didn't. It just got nearer. I stood there frozen up in fear when it got to the edge of the forest nearly on the street and started whispering something I couldn't understand. But to my luck, shortly after, a car passed and pulled me out of my state of shock, and I ran all the way home. I haven't walked that path since then. All in all, these encounters are also something very strange and very scary, and we're still not sure if it's actually a skinwalker or something else because normally these things aren't very normal here. We've even heard or seen one of these things on our driveway triggering one of the motion sensor lights. And sorry for my poor German pronunciation. I did the best I could. I knew my husband was cheating on me, and although I can forgive him, I had to know who the homewrecker was. Of all the people, I didn't expect to find my sister stuck to him after I filled super glue in the lube bottle beside the bed. And with that, our time together is coming to an end. First of all, if you have a story you'd like me to narrate, whether true or fictional, you can send it my way 3 different ways, either through my subreddit, email, or website. All the links are down below for you guys. And of course, I'd like to thank everyone who let me read their stories today. We definitely had some interesting stories, like the woman who was being hit on by a man much older than her while she's a minor. And even when she tells him such, he doesn't back down. Definitely red signs. I'm hoping he never shows up at her work again, though he should be banned and hopefully never able to come back again. Skinwalker encounter in Germany definitely threw me through a loop because skinwalkers, to my knowledge, are only supposed to be in the Americas, specifically North America, but I definitely had to read it and see what was going on with that story. The Owl Hollow story was such a weird one. People that just seem to have come out of pictures and then to have a whole whack of them watching you as you try to sleep. I'm just happy that OP got away before anything worse happened. And then the story about the stalker, or at least the intruder who walked into their home and rifled through their stuff, including their dressers, and didn't seem to take anything. Really weird. Even if a homeless person just wanted somewhere to sleep, if they saw valuables, they probably would have took them because money's money. I don't know, that one just was weird, and I'm happy the cops got there in time and OP was completely safe in the end. And now for the advice I give every time I read these stories. Always trust your gut, never let them take you to a second location, and be weird, odd, do whatever you have to get away from someone. If you're wrong, worst case scenario, they think you're a weirdo and they have an interesting story to tell. But if you're right, well, you can really save yourself and definitely can save your life. Now, if you enjoyed these stories, hit that like button and make sure it feels it. If you're new, please subscribe and turn that pretty little bell to all notifications. And of course, I would love a comment. Tell me what you think, what kind of stories you like in the future. I just love reading your guys' comments. If you're listening on the podcast and are able to, please leave a review, and of course, you can also leave a comment if you're on Spotify. If you'd like to help this channel and podcast grow, please share it with anyone who might enjoy it. It helps a lot. And if you'd like to help in a more financial way, like these lovely people on screen right now, I do have a Patreon and membership, where for $1 a month you get early access and a few other bonuses. Thank you guys for your support as always. If you'd like to do more of a one-time thing instead of recurring, I do have PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, and Super Thanks. All the links, including the ones to my socials and everything else, is in the description box for you guys. But as always, thank you for watching and listening. It always has and always will mean the world to me. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite.